Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about CRUD applications and whether or not they're fun. So let's get into it. So the question in question today was pretty much, Fredrik, I've been a competitive programmer for 2.5 years, and I've started to look at more serious, not being self-taught and not being just doing this for competitive reasons, but rather from my perspective, the CRUD applications and working as a regular programmer seems to become very boring because you're just doing the same thing, right? How do you feel about that, more or less? I can't remember the exact wording of this question, but that is roughly what the question was, and I think it is a fair question. So the essence of this question is, do we as programmers get to a point where we get bored with just everyday work? And see, this is the thing that I think is often going missed, or it's lacking, especially when we're doing coding tests, because there is a pattern to what it is that we are doing. Now, we will test the candidate quite often in how well they know computer science, or how well they do in coding challenges, or things like competitive coding and so forth, to gauge the intelligence of an individual. But the actual work that you do, especially if just in average, is pretty much the same thing regardless of where you go. And the thing is that this person has, the concern that it might get boring is valid to a point, but it also depends a little bit on you. So the thing that I argue, the thing that is true for me, is that I look at it, I don't necessarily look at it as it is the same thing over and over. There are absolutely things that are the same. Like you will go through the same process every single time that you build, say, a backend system or something like that. You will realize that you have a feature request or some request comes in, and it always boils down to one or two things is going to happen first. And that is, number one, you're going to have to decide on, is this an existing feature or is it a new feature? And the second thing is, are you going to open up an endpoint, or are you going to modify an existing endpoint in order to accommodate that new need on the back end? That's usually how it goes. And then from there, you write your business logic, and then you have some type of database call, something like that. All of these things happen, and these are pretty much the same regardless of where you go. It's very rare that things change so much that it's not that process isn't the same, right? But what I also wrote back and said is that I think that this is true regardless of what you do. So I'm the sort of person who gets excited about the problem. And that's the thing that I think is going missing in this idea of, okay, you're just doing the same thing. That must get really boring. It's similar to saying that it must be really boring to read books because you're always reading. Yeah, it is true, but there's always something new to read. Every book is different, and the same thing goes for every project. Every problem that you're solving in programming is different. There's no problem that is, even if you are building the same thing, it's not likely that the problem and the way that you're going to solve it for that specific project is going to be the same as you've done before. It's going to have a lot of maybe a few common elements, or maybe a lot in common with the previous existing project, but it's going to be its own thing. Every project is different, and that's the thing that makes this interesting to me. You see, the process of creation, regardless of what you create, if you're a sculptor or a musician or an architect or whatever you want to be, right? It doesn't matter. The steps involved in creating something may, in many cases, be the same, but the end result, the creation itself, is going to be different. And if that's the sort of thing that gets you excited, then programming is going to be very rewarding for you. And that is exactly what it is for me. That's why I don't get bored. That's why I love every single day of my job, where I never ever feel this, I don't want to go and like work on something, or I don't want to do this or so forth. I might be tired, such as now, but I will never feel that gut level thing that I have felt in, before I became a programmer, and I'm sure a lot of people feel, which is that I would rather do anything than go and do my job, or like do it, because that's the thing. It doesn't matter what I'm working on. Even if I hate the story I'm working on, I know it's going to be a challenge, and I know it's going to be interesting to figure out how to solve this problem. And the best analogy that I can give to the sensation that I have when it comes to software development is that it's very similar to being, in this regard, it's similar to being a musician. So once you learn all the chords on your guitar or whatever, once you learn how to play the different tunes on your instrument, that is the repetition. That is the thing that may be the same regardless of what you're working on. But through the understanding of how to create these combinations of tunes, you can create songs. And there's, in theory, an endless amount of songs that you can create. So what I want you to take away from this is that, at least for me, programming doesn't get boring, even if I'm building a CRUD application, because as long as the problem itself that I'm solving is different, which is almost always the case, because no project is exactly like another project, then there's always something new to learn. There's always something new to discover, something new to work with. Just as with a musician, you learn your chords, or how to create these different notes on your instrument in order to be able to create songs. And in theory, you can create an endless amount of songs. You can sit and compose for the rest of your life, and that is exactly programming. If you know it, and you know these steps that are common, that are a repetition, from that you can sit and be stimulated for the rest of your life. That's at least how I look at it. Have a great day.